We can resume our meeting on Chapter 3. This is a public hearing. Kenneth? Thank you, Chairman. For Chapter 3, we should be entering Part 4. But of course, if members want to ask questions about the other parts, they can do so. Part 4 is about provision of furniture and equipment. May I refer you to Table 4, which sets out non-standard furniture and GPA-approved furniture. On page 36, that is paragraph 4.3 of the report. That is page 42 of the English version. Of the $1.997 billion approved by the FC, $140 million were earmarked for furniture and equipment. From Table 4, you can see the approved purchase and amount spent. The $140 million were approved in January 2008. 1062, that is $168 million for the procurement of furniture and equipment. So should it be $106 million or $140 million? It should be $106 million just now. Well, $140 million was for all the furniture and equipment. Here in this table, we only see what the FSTB and the GPA were responsible for vetting. The Table 4 does not cover all furniture and equipment. What about the remaining $34 million approximately? Any information? The $30 million were not used. All right, thank you. Well, let's look at the major items. 1, for electronic systems. 2, security and electronic systems provided by the design and build contractor. Well, so many electronic systems. What were they doing? 4 electronic systems in item 1. How are they different from the electronic systems in item 2? A simple question. Who can answer this? CAD, who can answer? Chairman, I would like to explain that the 4 electronic systems in item 1 mean paragraph 4.5 in the audit report. A, B, C, D. That's the 4 electronic systems. That is the multimedia presentation system, simultaneous interpretation system, integrated information display system, and radio frequency identification library management system. These 4. As for item 2 in Table 4, in relation to security and electronic systems, they're set out roughly in the introduction. Integrated security system, broadcast system, miscellaneous furniture and equipment for guided tours in the viewing gallery. Well, for item 2, the amount approved was $67.45 million. But the actual expenditure was $64.54 million. Yes, approved amount, $67.45 million. Actual expenditure, $64.54. So that amount to the major part of the expenditure. In 6.4, paragraph 6.4, after approval was given for the item, the government was bound by the contract, and $67.45 million could be used for procurement of the systems. in February 2011, that is 21 months afterwards, funding allocation was sought for the procurement of the system. Well, in terms of time, 21 months is really very long. So, why is it that prior to approval, the government was committed to the spending of this sum? If a quotation is obtained, the employer must use the fund. So why is it that you committed yourself to the amount first before you obtained financial approval? Who will answer this, the director or the Director General? Director General, Mr. Law, would you please lift your microphone? Would you please lift your microphone? Mr. Leung, Mr. Leung, Director of Architectural Services Department. Now, this is for the procurement of furniture and equipment. Item 2 was included in the construction contract, and the contractor was responsible for design and installation, and the remaining items were procured by the CAD. The requirements under Item 2 were put into the construction contract, so arrangements were made for tendering. At the time of tender, contractors would submit preliminary design. After we've accepted the design of the selected contractor, the contractor had to follow up in 2 steps. The first step is that they had to sit down with the CAD and the ASD to deepen and implement the design. So that's approval in principle. Given the approval in principle, the contractor would produce a deepened design. Both parts had to be vetted and approved. Then, all the details of the furniture and equipment had emerged. On the basis of those information, the CAD would apply to the FSTB. Mr. Leung, let me ask this. These electronic systems were not part of the major construction or the building. It's just that when you buy a piece of barbecued pork, the vendor gave you a bone. In addition, now the contractor was responsible for construction. Why should the contractor be responsible for these electronic systems? Be it 67.45 million or 64.54 million, for this single item, you should have gone for another open tender. That is, for this $64.54 million, you had to issue another tendering document for contractors to bid for the item. But now the contractor, the construction contractor, was responsible for everything. Was there any procedural problem? Well, would you please explain the design and build concept to the honorable member? For example, this complex was also under a design and build contract. So would you please explain the concept to members? Thank you, Chairman. In the contract, we would require the contractor to do something in accordance with the requests of the employer. For example, Item 2 involved security systems. The contractor would be responsible for the CCTVs, part of the security system. So in the integrated design, they should make room for that. For example, troughs for the cables had to be provided. So this is an integrated system. So that's put in the construction contract. For other facilities, an independent or a separate contractor could be brought in. Kenneth, usually for integrated design and build contracts, they usually don't need to come back to the LegCo for extra funding. Particularly for such a huge project, the estimates would be included in the big sum. Perhaps in future, the PwC can examine this mechanism. So, Mr. Leung, is that your explanation? In fact, I'd like to hear him more clearly. Members of the public would also like to know more about these design and build contracts. If you are to put many systems in the building, probably you have to do the design right from the beginning. But for just now you mentioned preliminary design and deepened design before you actually purchase the furniture and equipment. Why did you not raise with the FSTB? That is right from the beginning that you would need a deepened design. Is it that at the beginning you could not estimate the cost? Because when you apply to the FSTB later, you're actually forcing the FSTB to entertain your request. That's not logical. And there are many types of security systems. Did you ask for more choices? The contractor was responsible for building the building, but then there might be A, B, C, D types of security and electronic systems. Why should you have to swallow what the contractor gave you? Mr. Leung, the contract was very clear. The new CAD headquarters had to comply with the latest international aviation safety standards. All those standards were put into the contract, and the contractor had to comply with the standards. My question is, did they try to fetch outside more than one supplier, say suppliers A, B, C, and D? Well, they're just like a letterbox. Let us ask the user, that is CAD. DGCA, Mr. Law, I also have to ask my colleagues. The question is, did you choose the system and you told Mr. Leung, and then Mr. Leung put that into the contract? You have to explain this just because this is rather complicated. No, it's not that the contractor gave us choices, A, B, C, and D. We set the requirements and they provided the equipment to us. Well, Mr. Chairman, allow me to speak. It's very simple. Say, I want to refurbish my home. I want an air conditioner. The contractor gave me a quotation including an air conditioner. But of course, I would like to have quotations for different brands. Well, I may at least want 3 types of air cons for choosing. So the contractor should give me different quotations. But now you're telling us that there's only one quotation given to you, that is $64.54 million. So, have you done your best? We didn't specify any brand or manufacturer. In accordance with our requirements, well, they jotted down our requirements, and then the contractor got everything into a model. ASD, let me supplement. That was an open tender exercise. The contractor, in accordance with the request of the employer, offered us quotations. Can you explain? Was there just one quotation, which was the overall cost? Well, maybe it's just $10 billion covering this system as well, or these systems as well. Can you be clearer? Well, this sum covers a number of breakdowns. Table 4 only gives you the total figures. There are a lot of breakdowns. Another question for you. Why is it I would like to ask about the approval procedure? You said that you had the deepened design before you sought funding approval. But what about Financial Circular 90? Before you've obtained consent from the FTSD, you shouldn't reserve funds for certain equipment. You are now telling us that in actual fact you are unable to comply with the requirement, so blah blah blah. You shouldn't treat the circular as being non-existent. Would you explain Financial Circular 90 to us? How is that related to the design and build contract? Is it directly related or indirectly related to the design and build contract? I'm referring to Financial Circular 9/90. So would you please explain the circumstances to us? Mr. Chairman, we've learned a lesson from this incident. We know that it took time for the FSTB to give us approval. So in future, we'll avoid premature commitment of funds. At the time of tendering, if we cannot set out the details in clear terms, we'll set those items aside as provisional items. Until the contract is granted, then we'll set out the detailed requirements in relation to design. So you're admitting that what you did previously was not proper. I accept that explanation. So much for part 4 for the time being. Well, Mr. Leung, this is confusing. If this is a design and build contract, the tender documents should contain all the information. What sort of security and electronic system should be used, for example, although the systems would only be put to use 21 months afterwards? The contract shouldn't have been affected. Would you please explain this to us? You mentioned the contractor, but the Financial Circular is not about a design and build contract. Mr. Chairman, you are correct. We'll follow up with the FSTB on this. That is to see how we can be more efficient in future. Well, I would like to seek further clarification on this design and build contract. Did it actually cover the security and electronic systems? If so, Financial Circular 9/90 was irrelevant. But you said that it is relevant. Your answer was not clear enough. I have doubts here. Earlier you said you got this design and build contract, but now you admit that you're in the wrong. So would you please elaborate? Let me elaborate. For the Financial Circular, it does request us to seek prior approval from the FSTB before granting the contract. Mr. Law, can you explain? Chairman, according to the Financial Circular, as Mr. Leung said, before committing to the funding, they should have sought prior consent from the FSTB. But as for design and build contracts, if there are special circumstances, Mr. Leung was saying that in future there should be further inspection. Oh, Mr. Yang? From our standpoint, Financial Circular 990 should be applicable. At that time did the contract cover the security and electronic systems? Would you please tell us the relation between the security and electronic systems and the design and build contract? The circular was about the procurement of non-standard furniture, so prior approval from the FSTB is required. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on that. You're saying that Financial Circular 990 is applicable. It's also said that the security and electronic systems were part of the design and build contract. Mr. Leung, at which point should the user apply to the FSTB? In future, if we have a design and build contract and the funds required exceeds the approved estimates and you have to issue the tender documents, at what point should the user lodge the application? Tell us the amounts involved as well. If you don't have the information here, you can give us a reply later. We'll supplement after the meeting. So for the time being, you are not able to answer my questions. Mr. Chairman, this case occurred many years ago, so we need some time to dig out the details. You analyzed the case after the incident occurred. I'm asking, in future, if similar circumstances occur, because with so many government buildings, you should have very clear guidelines on design and build contracts. That is, they should allow the FSTB sufficient time for vetting. We must have a clear direction ahead. That is, clear guidelines must be issued to government departments.
Chairman, according to the circular, then an application will have to be made to the FSTB as soon as possible. And as to whether it can be done by way of provisional item, we will follow up with the ASD. When it comes to provisional item, that means there is no commitment made. Even when a contract is signed with the contractor. What kind of provision are you talking about? Say, for example, the contract value is $1.9 billion, and maybe 100 million of it will not be committed yet. If you refer to Table 4, an approved item is about $97 million, and there is also the actual spending. If you refer to 9/90, when it was submitted, can you maybe explain to us, because this is rather complicated. I'll try to answer this question. Supplements are to be made by my colleagues. We're talking about a major project, design and build contract. My understanding is that there will be a lump sum for the major items. When it comes to more detailed items, it's under the purview of different departments. Say, for example, some of them related to furniture, systems, and they have to be vetted and proved by the FSTB under Financial Circular 990. And when it comes to timing, well, it's as soon as possible, or sometimes it's after coordination. We knew that we needed the approval of the FSTB, but it was only done afterwards. We could have done better. We when it reached the stage of detailed design, we would know what systems were involved. And whether we need an approval from the FSTB when it comes to, say, office furniture and appliances. Alan, Raymond Wong, you've put your hand up. There's still a part in part 3 that I haven't asked, but I don't want to jump back and forth. I will continue with part 4. Let's look at the PWSC document. And on the 20th of December 2007, it is R63/3/Info 7. Members have asked to refer to it, and it's dated the 20th of December 2007, and it's a discussion paper, and is head 703 buildings, 75K8 new CAD headquarters. Please refer to paragraph 8. You see that there is the $1.997 billion, and you see a breakdown. One of the items is furniture and equipment with $140 million set aside. In note 5, it says, let me quote, based on an indicative list of furniture and equipment items required including a security system, audio-visual system, a public address system, a simultaneous interpretation system, mobile emergency power generators, mobile storage racks, a RFID library system, and furniture for aircraft accident investigation facilities, ATC tour, presentation room, education path, staff canteen, library resource center, and general offices. That's in black and white. Just now, Mr. Yang, on behalf of the FSTB, gave us an answer, but he just, I think, tried to maybe buy some time to think about it. Well, we've read a lot of these documents in PWSC. I don't believe that there was anything of a gray area. But if Mr. Leung would like to talk to other departments before giving us a consolidated reply, then I don't mind. But at this point in time, I'd like to clarify a number of points. If we refer to Financial Circular 9/90, the regulation is very clear. That is, the controlling officer of the user department, in the course of purchase of furniture and equipment, should seek prior approval or advance approval. The FSTB is the approving authority of procurement of furniture and equipment. Can I hear from Mr. Yeung? In relation to Financial Circular 990, according to the PWSC document, as I've quoted, at what stage should an approval be sought from the FSTB? There is $140 million earmarked. When should an application, an approval be sought as required under Financial Circular 990? According to the circular, departments should get approval from the relevant authority before they commit the funds. So for a non-standard furniture, they should seek an approval from the FSTB. We're talking about procurement of security system. In January 2008, the CAD got a funding approval from the Finance Committee of $97 million, $1.9 billion for the construction of the new CAD headquarters, and out of which $140 million was for security, for furniture and equipment. And under the employer's requirement, it set out that security system is to be provided, and that is quoted to be $67.45 million. So in this flow, under your in relation to your answer, prior to prior to May 9, 2009, you should have got an approval from the FSTB for $64 million for the security system. Is that right? We have to refer to the details of the design and build contract before I can give you an answer. But according to the audit report, paragraph 4.4, it seems that the audit has got a conclusion already, because in paragraph 4.4, the $67.45 million system was not covered by the FSTB's approval, which is in violation of the requirement of Financial Circular number 990. Perhaps Mr. Yang hasn't read this. Can I get some assistance from the Director for Audit? In 2009, May, there was a contract signed, but I could not see an approval from the FSTB. It was only on the 31st of May 2012 when approval was given. That's why I drew such a conclusion in paragraph 4.4. Well, we can see that it was February 2011, that is 21 months later, when an approval was sought from the FSTB. That means it's fait accompli. It can't be clearer than that. Well, as in the report said, in February 2011, an approval was given. I asked for some time to find the information because Mr. Kenneth Leung asked us questions about the time when an approval was sought from us. So I have to refer to records before I can give you an answer. When it comes to when an approval was given, is clear in the report. I think this is a crucial point, but as to when something should take place at which stage, I think it's more an academic discussion. Well, the ASD is actually colluding with the CAD. They are getting cozy with one another. And the two parties in the PVC, that is the FSTB and the GPA, have been ignored. Why were things done this way? Can I get some answers? Have they completely flunked all the rules and regulations? Sorry, speaker's not coming through. Requirements were incorporated under the contract. That's the usual practice of the ASD. And as to why it was included in a tender document in relation to furniture and equipment before there was an approval, well, we agree with the audit report. In the future, if we encounter similar problems, and if an approval have not been sought from the GPA or from the FSTB, we would put it under provisional commitment. Mr. Low. Sorry, speaker's not coming through. In relation to the audit report, well, in hindsight, the CAD should have been alive to the fact that an approval has not been sought from the FSTB. This is a design and build contract, and is something new to us. When the contract was awarded, and from the information I got from my colleagues, all information related to security and electronic systems was incomplete. And if we asked for an approval from the FSTB, we would not have been able to furnish all the information to them. And in Table 4, apart from Item 2, which is included in the design and build contract, the other items 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 have been done in accordance with Financial Circular Number 9/90, i.e., prior approval sought. The focus of the PAC is items that have not been done in line with the requirement of 990. Well, for the rest, if they have been done in accordance with the financial circular, then they can serve as mitigation factors. But that's all they are. Well, you have purchased many items and many different sets of systems without an approval. I know that the expertise of the CAD is civil aviation. They are experts when it comes to aircraft. But the FSTB is our cashier, is the government's cashier, is the treasury of the government. And rules and regulations should have been abided by. We need to learn from mistakes made previously. We asked the secretary to come here, and he's still here with us in the afternoon. And it means something. Because if you flout all the rules and regulations, then our treasurer is redundant. So I do not accept saying that the CAD is not familiar with this, because you have already got an expert here to seek help from. So can we hear from the DG of the CAD? That is the security and electronic systems purchase and the purchase of video display equipment are actually mistakes, and they have not proceeded in accordance with Financial Circular 990. That is to seek prior approval from the FSTB. Well, it was said that it's something new. That's actually not something new, because in 2007, in a PWSC document, we see the the idea of provisional, this concept. So it's not something new. So in relation to the $140 million, how is it provisional? It's something that can be dealt with. If you say that the FSTB did not have enough time to decide how to use the $140 million, then you wait till the FSTB has made the decision, and you just make arrangements for it in the tender document. You have to make it clear to us that do you admit this responsibility?
Mr. Leung, I agree with the audit report's view. In future tender exercises, do you agree that, or do you accept that you have this responsibility? We understand and we agree that there is room for improvement. This is a direct question. It's about liabilities. Do you have the responsibility of complying with 990? Yes, definitely. We have this responsibility. Mr. Low? Similarly, the CAD also agrees with the audit report, and we admit this responsibility. Alan? So much from me for the time being, but I'd like to go back to issue 3 or part 3 later. Mr. Raymond Wong, your turn. The top officials of this administration is quite unique. Sorry, couldn't hear you. Now you can hear me. I should use this mic. Well, for bureau directors in Hong Kong, they are reluctant to admitting mistakes, and that's their characteristic. You accept the audit report's views, so that means you accept the responsibilities. Well, stop playing around with words. We're asking you to be accountable, but you never admit your mistake. To err is human. Everybody makes mistakes. But the mistakes should not be termed as accepting the audit report's views. 3.3, 3.4, 3.5 on toilet and shower facilities. I understand that members have asked questions on that. No, they haven't. About the provision of toilet shower facilities in the Director General's office, although it's noted that there was no support for the provision of shower toilet facilities, and I quote from para 3.4 and 5, that the GPA thought that the CAD would not pursue the request with the GPA. That means they just went ahead with the application first. And now when things got busted, they agreed to alter the toilet into storeroom. They understood that they were in the wrong, and yet they decided to proceed with it, and thought that they could muddle through, and that no one would know. And then it could be treated as non-existent. That means the audit commission. Do you take the audit commission as blind because your work will be inspected, then the shower facilities would be discovered? Isn't it outrageous? Although they knew they did not have the support from the RSD, they did not have the support by the PVC. They still nevertheless submitted the room data sheet to the GPA or the ASD. Director General, as I understand, several groups or several teams were working at the same time. One of the teams was preparing the room data sheet for the furniture and fittings in rooms, and another team was handling the SFA, the schedule of accommodation, while some other staff members were discussing with the GPA on details. And then on the 3rd of October 2007, when the GPA informed the CAD of the approved schedule of accommodation, on the very same day, our colleagues submitted the whole package to the ASD, and there was an error in the sense that it didn't specify items that were not approved by the GPA, items that were approved. Well, Mr. Low, can you answer the question directly? It was a very direct question. You deliberately knew that the PVC did not support the proposal. The room data sheet for the provision of shower facilities was still submitted to the GPA, so stop beating about the bush. I understand, or I believe, that is due to inadequate communication between the CAD and the GPA. Well, let me help you, Director General. Don't be frightened by Mr. Raymond Wong. Now, the first question is this: why do you need a shower facility? As Director General, this facility should not be available to you, and only Director of Bureau should be given this facility, or is it that your subordinates were only acting on your orders? No, but the point is, why did you request for a toilet shower facility in your own private office? And then, to answer Mr. Raymond Wong's question, why did you go ahead even when you knew that the idea was not supported? Well, then I had to ask the ASD as well. Why was it that without any support from PVC, the ASD still proceeded with the construction of a shower facility? Now, this morning you explained due to operational needs, and I understand that the accident investigation team also raised the same request in relation to investigation facilities. Now I'm asking about your own office. I was also appointed as well, but it's in your office. Just answer directly, because you are in charge of everything in CAD. So the question is why the facility was constructed in your office. Well, it was I who made this application with my colleague, and then they discussed with the GPA. Well, in fact, in Note 20, you explain that the Director General of Civil Aviation would be in office at small hours or overnight in the event of aircraft accident. Don't say you had no idea. It's outrageous. You gave an explanation. We don't accept your explanation. Well, we give you a chance to explain. We have read the report. Now you're beating about the bush. The explanation was clearly stated in your report. We're giving you this opportunity to elaborate your explanation. Are there any other explanations not included in this report? I briefly said just now that I personally believed it's a communication problem between colleagues because several teams were working at the same time. Now, a toilet shower facility was built in my own office without approval. That's also a mistake on the part of the CAD, and I am willing to take up responsibility. Well, DG, in para 3.2, and let me follow up on this point. You said that there was such a need. So in your logbook, can you tell us, according to your logbook, how many nights did you perform your duties as stated here? How many nights were you on duty, and how, under these circumstances, how many showers did you take? Because soon after moving in, we received media inquiries, and after that, I myself never used the room, the facility. Well, until he got busted, right? Until he got busted by the media. Chairman, I'd like to follow up on this. We need to make things very clear. Now, everybody has heard very clearly. We ask so meticulously. That's the responsibility of PAC members. Sometimes I might speak loudly. I might also express my views. But, Secretary, all my remarks are based on facts. Without actual fact, I couldn't make such remarks. And the GPA made it very clear that having considered the provision for other heads of departments with similar roles and ranks in August and September 2007, the GPA informed the CAD that it did not support the proposed shower facility. So the ASD also had a major role to play. Well, that's government departments protecting each other. So it's those people from ASD, let me tell you, although you knew it was not supported or permitted, you still helped them build it. You are an executive department. Without getting formal documentation from the GPA, did you have the power to freely interpret the decisions of the GPA? The ASD at that time understood that the GPA did not approve the toilet shower facility in the DG's office. However, the ASD sought clarification from CAD and understood that the CAD would seek approval from the GPA. And in hindsight, well, that's what I said. You're just speculating the GPA's decision and speculating that GPA would support the proposed facility. And then you went ahead. How could you do things in such a manner? Well, we need to follow the procedures. Chairman, if their argument holds water, then for the police commissioner, he also needs private toilet shower facilities. The same applies to the heads of FSD and Customs and Excise. So, Director, why did you have this conjecture at the time? Did you put your heads together in a meeting and discuss with them, or did you just decide on the part of ASD to go ahead with it? We read some justifications put forward by the CAD at the time. We understood that during major civil aviation accidents, investigators would be required to conduct the taking of evidence or the collection of evidence on scene for report compilation within 48 hours. So it's similar to what we explained about the restrooms. Our understanding was that the CAD would pursue the matter with GPA for the similar toilet shower facility in the DG's office. Well, Director, the GPA already made it clear that it would not support the proposal. And then you had your own conjecture. And this morning, in para 3.11 about accident investigators, you may wish to look at 3.11 again. GPA did not support the proposal, and you went ahead with both. So it was rather outrageous. 3.11 about accident investigation, those rooms, and you went ahead with both. We accept that it was indeed a negligence or omission, that it was not duly followed up with. So So did they? Was the conjecture right, Mr. Siu? The provision of private toilet and shower facility in an office is subject to very clear and stringent guidelines in the government. The chief executive, director bureaus, permanent secretaries above the D8, and also the heads of certain disciplined service departments would be permitted, not for other departments though. All right, going back to 3.6 and 3.7. Well, this is about finding out the truth and facts. If you don't agree, you'll be given a chance to respond. Toilet shower facilities in a private office, that's certainly clearly not permissible. Recreational facilities. The multi-purpose room or multifunction room was changed or converted into a dance room, and is certainly without approval. And originally, it was proposed to be used by public. Now the CAD acted on its own initiative to convert it into a dance room and then to a meeting room. Originally, the visitor or the viewing gallery was supposed to be used by the public, but now it's for private use, even if it's changed into a meeting room. So what are the justifications? Have you sought approval from the GPA or the PVC? I don't think it's just an administrative error. I think it has to do with the wrong mindset, because this is public money and there are procedures to follow, but you don't follow the established procedures. So I'd like the CAD to answer me on this. The visitors' lounge, the public viewing gallery, they were supposed to be for public's use, and now it's been changed to a dance room and then to a meeting room. This morning you explained about the other point. Chairman, please remind me. Yes, I would remind you about questions asked this morning. The space left is now used for this purpose. So the explanation given this morning was about another matter. Now, after it's been elevated by 3 meters, the viewing gallery would no longer enable visitors to view the operation inside the control tower simulator. So colleagues then suggested converting it into a multi-function room so that it could play back the training in progress inside control tower simulator for other colleagues viewing. It could also be used for other purposes, but unfortunately the project team failed to seek approval from the GPA for the conversion. And on completion of the construction, it was subsequently found that GPA's approval was required for construction, alteration and conversion of use, and the project team made a mistake, and they've learned a lesson. And for the multi-function room, now the mirrors have been covered, and now it's being used as a conference room or meeting room. And we've gone through the GPA and the PVC. They gave their approval last year. Mr. Leung, why would you agree to their so doing? At that time, during the schematic design stage, originally, the space was to be used as a viewing gallery for viewing inside the control tower simulator. However, when the simulator was procured, there was a new model, and there was a discrepancy in terms of the building design. And having discussed with the CAD, which requested the conversion of the viewing gallery into a multifunction room. We considered that the construction cost was actually the same, so we proceeded with it.
Well, even for the whole new CAD headquarters, there's no overspending. Does it mean that you can spend the money on anything you like? I think your answer is really extremely unreasonable. When you come for funding, members will ask you questions. We don't know. You're going to use it for yoga, for dancing, and so forth. This was meant to be a public viewing gallery. Mr. Xu, did you have very clear guidelines for them on what to be built? Chairman, we approved the schedule of accommodation. Then afterwards, if there were major alterations, they should go back to seek approval from the PVC. Did you know of such major alterations? We learned of the alterations only afterwards. When? In 2013. After inquiring with them, we discovered the problem. Then we discussed with the CAD. At the moment, the PVC approved altering the facility to a conference room. What about paragraph 3.9 and 3.10 in relation to the investigator's restroom? Well, another question first. After so much follow-up work, are you able to give us the latest figures on the toilets, the shower facilities, and so forth? Because there were alterations after alterations. Can you later give us the figures? Because we're talking about public money. We have to spell all these out in our report. We'll conduct an analysis. Yokman, in October 2007, the CAD, in relation to the schedule of accommodation and the updated refurbishment details, issued tender documents. In the form, there should only be one. In November 2007, the contents were modified to become 7 rooms, and then in May 2008, there was another alteration. But 7 rooms became 1 room, was put on the cover, but in the content, 7 rooms were still 7 rooms. Why is it that in that document submitted by the CAD, the contents differed from the cover? Did you consult the PVC and the GPA? How come you assumed that the PVC and the GPA would give you approval again? So you're only speculating. So your speculation correct or otherwise? Are you sure what I'm asking? I spoke very rapidly but eloquently and clearly. Well, I don't want to repeat myself. We have minutes for our meetings. I'll take it that they had already answered your previous questions. All right. Supplementary papers were to be submitted to the PVC. Why did you wait till you got approval from the PVC? Mr. Leung. This morning, Mr. Leung accepted that they didn't do it quite correctly. All right, 3.11. Deviation from the schedule of accommodation in relation to the restrooms for investigators. And the GPA was repeatedly consulted. Now, the CAD said that due to the pressing timetable, whether the reserved facilities would be a desirable move. Why is it that suddenly you had a pressing timetable? To construct the new headquarters according to the schedule of accommodation wouldn't lead to any urgency. And even so, there's no justification for deviating from the schedule of accommodation. That's the crux of the matter, right? CAD. Well, questions were asked from a different angle, though. So, answers, please. Director General, Mr. Low, you had a pressing timetable because you altered the schedule of accommodation on your own. We're of the view that the construction time frame was pressing. Nothing involved approval by the PVC. The project itself was rather complicated. We had to build the building first before equipment could be brought in and assembled. The ATC equipment went through a tender exercise earlier, so the timetable was slightly pressing. Well, I don't think that's a good reason, though. Indeed, we're careless. We did not observe the area approved by the PVC in building the facilities. Mr. Leung, why did we put the toilet and shower facility into the contract? Because these facilities involved water supply and drainage design. So in the overall design, we had to take into consideration those facilities. So at that time, we thought that if we did not include those facilities, when we wanted to add in those facilities later, the contractor might claim damages. So in future, without consent from the PVC, we wouldn't do anything similar. Well, please don't leave. Yok man, please don't leave. You cannot leave for the moment. The Secretariat will fetch another member to replace you first. Sorry, I have 3 meetings at the same time. Mr. Allen, Mr. Chairman, of course, if for all these items, 1,500 square meters, toilet, shower facilities, investigators' restroom, multifunction rooms, security and electronic systems, LCD, display, etc., etc. If we want to ask more about the details of procurement, we can do so. But I think the CAD and the ASD already knew what had happened. The user department this time is, of course, the CAD. The CAD had totally neglected the schedule of accommodation and area allocation for all these facilities and equipment. The room data sheet, the area allocation schedule of accommodation, the requirements in Financial Circular 9/90, and so forth, were including the GPA's rules and regulations. The CAD gave no regard to all those. This is Hong Kong. I don't want our officials to treat Hong Kong as if there are no rules and regulations, or prima facie there are rules and regulations, but you don't observe them. If that is the case, Hong Kong is finished, immediately finished. So, Mr. Chairman, this is a very serious culture matter within the government. Right from the very beginning this morning, I mentioned this viewpoint of mine, and it's because of this viewpoint that the PAC is so concerned this time. Now, if you look at this picture produced by the audit, you see that the Director of Architectural Service is a crucial role, a crucial person. Just look at all the items. He is the controlling officer. In addition, he is the chairman of the PVC. Chairman, he's the chairman. He and the user department, to be direct, seem to be engaged in some form of collusion, such that the FSTB and the GPA could not discharge their functions. He's not the chairman. He's the assistant director of the ASD. Was the DAS the chairman? For the PVC is the assistant director. All right. He was one of the members forming the PVC, right? Even if he was not the chairman, his duties would not be too different from those of the chairman. He is the controlling officer. When the DGCA put forth those requests in the form of the employer's requirement, what happened? Such form of private collusion, I wouldn't like to see it anymore in future. At that time, Mr. Leung was not the Director of Architectural Services, but back then, the conduct of the officials was chilling. We have to treat this very seriously. This had happened to the new CAD headquarters. Tomorrow, the same might happen to other government departments in relation to the offices of the heads of departments, the GPA, and the PVC and the FSTB could not play the role of gatekeeper well. So Professor Anthony Cheung has come back this afternoon. His trip here this afternoon will not be wasted. If Hong Kong has rules and regulations but does not observe them, if Hong Kong has systems that we don't observe, then Hong Kong is no longer Hong Kong. Well, to sum up, that's the crux of the matter for all the problems that we have identified. Well, Mr. Chairman, after asking so many questions, probably it's not necessary to ask questions about the details of the letters, etc. So perhaps I should turn to the car park. I hope that the attending officials today can understand why the PAC is so concerned this time. We're not targeting any particular person. It's because we very much treasure the system. We don't want the system to fall. So please understand that we are not targeting any individual. We treasure the system too much that we don't want it to collapse. May I refer you to paragraph 5.7. Let's look at the average from April to July 2014. For the 209 parking spaces constructed, the average usage rates decreased from 21% to 23% for weekdays and from 6% to 7% for weekends and public holidays. Just look at the photo. It's empty. So what's the present situation? Well, we are 4 months after that quarter, April to July 2014. Is the situation still the same? Mr. Low, DGCA, the situation shouldn't have changed too much when compared with April to July, although we don't yet have the latest figures. Let me explain. About 60% of our manpower, because of the delay of the commissioning of the new ATC center, are still working in the old center. They may be driving to their offices, but they're not using this car park. So for the time being, the usage rate will still be on the low side. After the new center is commissioned, many people will come back to the new center to attend work. I believe the usage rate will then rise. When will this new center be commissioned according to your estimation? Any estimation of the date of commissioning? Our preliminary estimation is that it can be fully commissioned in the first half of 2016. The main reason is that we have already conducted site tests, field tests, but there's room for further improvement. We're now collating views received with the manufacturer, the supplier. They're going to give us a work schedule for the coming year. Then we'll proceed with training. We estimate that by the first half of 2016, that center can be commissioned. So even for the first quarter of, we're still 5 quarters from the first quarter of 2016. So how are you going to handle these parking spaces? Will you left them vacant? We communicated with the GPA with the hope of allowing other government departments, particularly those operating on the airport island, to temporarily use these parking spaces. I'd like to say that the new ATC Center is a critical infrastructure project according to the SARG. All equipment have been assembled there. So for the time being, we'll only open these parking spaces to government departments. GPA, of course, you still have a little bit more than 1 year to go. Now there are so many unused parking spaces here. Any department can use these parking spaces, as Mr. Norman Low said, so that we won't suffer so much or lose so much. Well, the GPA will consult other government departments such that these spaces will be used as far as possible to make good use of the land. Of course, we'll also examine with other government departments to see whether vehicles in neighboring government departments or government departments in the vicinities that can use the parking spaces, or for the time being we can consider temporary storage. When will you have a final decision? You said you're going to consider this. That may take you up to the first quarter of 2016. Well, very soon you should submit proposals to the CAD. Well, Mr. Chairman, under the law, we have to complete our report within 3 months. So if you have information in this regard for the PAC, we're willing to include those information in our report. Then you can gain some additional scores in this value for money audit exercise. So I think you should try your best. If the GPA has any proposals, the CAD should adopt them as far as possible, such that these parking spaces built with public money won't be left unused like this.
If you refer to way forward, in paragraph 6.3 and 6.8, the CAD said that they have set up a dedicated project team to implement the new CAD headquarters project. Follow-up work will also be taken up in relation to the irregularities identified in the report. Oh, yeah, well, I shouldn't put it this way. Let me put it a different way. Well, there is a dedicated team responsible for the new CAD headquarters project. It will monitor progress. From the report, does it mean that this dedicated team has not done its job? If that is the case, has the DG conducted any analysis? And if so, can he give us the information? The CAD indeed set up a dedicated project team for this project. There are a dozen of task force. It covers all areas, say for example, project coordination, environmental protection, security. A lot of people have given their input and in relation to the project. We fully realize the complexity of the project. We have also asked senior planner of the ASD and from the EMSD, an E&M engineer to help us. We're talking about complex issues. The THB requires the CAD to submit a report. I've looked into it. Well, after I've looked into it, I would know about the communication channel between the relevant government department and the dedicated project team. What I can see so far is that we were too aggressive when it comes to budget, and we've learned something from communication and liaison with other departments. We've learned from the lesson. Let me ask the Secretary some questions, save him having to sit there and not having to do anything. Well, you've read chapter 3 of report number 63, and you have been conscientious. You've attended the full hearing so far. This is under your purview. What can you say to the PAC? How can you make sure that irregularities like this one will not occur again. And you said in your opening remark that this compliance culture should be forged. How do you do it? Do you propose? How do you propose to do it, Secretary? I attach a lot of importance in every audit report related to the THB. What is reviewed in this report are problems arisen from the new CAD headquarters project, and they stem from deviation from established procedures. I fully understand that we're talking about the use of public funds. Procedures will have to be followed. Different departments play different roles. Some are responsible for giving approval, some are for gatekeeping, and some responsible for reporting to the LegCo. For certain facilities or items, it may be necessary for the operation of the department. Still, they will have to follow the procedure and let the LegCo know. We're talking about something that happened many years ago. Decisions were made. We supplied information in relation to the report, and for some we could not find the answer. We have asked the relevant director to submit reports. We have to learn from this, and we have accepted the recommendations of the audit to follow up. Where there are officers who have made mistakes, we will follow the established procedure to follow up on the issue. Well, there are problems reviewed in this report. That is, when it comes to government property management, and when it comes to oversight of expenditure by government departments on the part of the FSTB, there is room for improvement. I would like to ask the deputy. I would like to ask the FSTB, how are they going to plug the loopholes of the irregularities reviewed in this report in relation to the CAD? There will be new complex build. There will be other government properties to be managed. We have to make sure that public money is not wasted. Mr. Leung, Deputy Secretary. Thank you. We attach importance to the recommendations of the report. about what Mr. Leung said. There are a number of points touched on by the audit that are related to compliance with financial circular and management of government property. On the 1st of October, we have revised and launched a new property management manual. We've made it clearer in the dissemination of information to government departments, and we've had a couple of briefings conducted in last month. We've invited government departments to attend. GPA explain the salient points and important rules and regulations when it comes to government property management. And they were told that if there are inquiries, they should approach the GPA or the FSTB. Please refer to 6.14. It is in relation to the recommendations or the new measures mentioned by the Deputy Secretary. I would like to get some clarification from the administration. That is Part 4, procurement of display equipment and also security and electronic systems. And in paragraph 4.8, it says that 143 LCD display units have been purchased without the approval from the FSTB. Some of the LCD video display units were put in the heads of units or office, and some of them have gone to resources center and a canteen. There are 4 such LCD display units in the canteen, and we've only got 1 in our canteen. Why was there a need to purchase so many of these LCD display units? One of them is a 65-inch one. If you say that, well, it would facilitate display of information related to aviation, then yes, but we're talking about display units put in restrooms or canteens, and for some of these rooms there is already one in. When it comes to government procurement, there is the Financial Circular 9/90. How could they not refer to this circular? So, what is the rank of the officer who gave the approval? Did that officer know about this document? And how come that officer missed this document? In Table 5, that is page 46, there is an information about what these LCD display units are and where are they put and what they are for. Yes, there are 143 LCD display units. 57 of them there are 57 of them that are for integrated information display system, and the FSTB approved 50 of them. And we have procured 7 additional ones. No, it said for multimedia presentation system 79, but there is nil when it comes to FSTB's approved quantities. Don't just give us part of the truth. Please give us direct answers, because we've read the report through and through. So you won't know about the report better than we do. Please give direct answers. We'll try to help you as much as possible. Don't take us around the block, because it's a long day. Well, for multimedia presentation system, there are 79 display units. When approval was sought, there was no mention about LCD display units. When we got an umbrella approval, we only mentioned about operation needs. You will find it in the paragraph 4.5a. That is multimedia presentation system. They include replay system, and they include video projector and screen, video and teleconferencing system, audio, video playback and recording system. There is no mention about LCD display unit. And under Financial Circular 9/90, there was insufficient information given to the FSTB, and when an approval, the FSTB did not specifically give approval for LCD display units. But it's obvious that the officers responsible for the procurement, they were aware of the circular and the relevant documents. It's just that they were not aware that they had to put down the word LCD. And how come that you would go ahead to procure the 79 units? There were two forms, one for 9/90, the other one for EMSF. That is the trading fund of the EMSD. How come? The entire system came from the trading fund of the EMSD, and as I said, there was a dedicated team. One of the members was seconded from the EMSD. And a briefing was conducted. And information about location of the multimedia presentation system was given, and LCD units were included. And these were mentioned, and in the end, their proposal was accepted. Some LCD display units were purchased. However, when an application was made, it wasn't specified that LCD display units were included. If you refer to 4.8c, you would see that for the 79 LCD display units that were not covered by FSTB's approval, only 41 of them were provided in meeting and training facilities. The remaining 38 of them were provided in other locations. So why did you not purchase 41 but 79? Because you would know already how many of them you would need for offices and training facilities. And you still haven't told me what was the rank of the officer who gave the approval. Give us a clear answer or seek help from your colleague. I will defer to Mr. Wu, Richard Wu. So you know what Mr. Chen was asking.
Chairman, very simply, why did they decide to buy 79 units? Because for actual meeting training purposes, only 41 were provided. Why were so many other units purchased? Was it Mr. Wu who made the decision on procurement? Thank you, Chairman. As explained by the Director General just now, the dedicated team was involved in the procurement process. The dedicated team, according to documentation, sought user requests from different divisions, and then a briefing was held. And then the briefing was conducted on all the users' requirements in general. And according to documentation, a review was conducted, and ultimately it was decided that these units would be placed in the locations mentioned in the audit report and as mentioned by members just now. And then the team or the task force was responsible for vetting and for further submission to EMSD for procurement. So EMSD was responsible for procurement, or was it the consultant? Could you explain its role? It seems they knew nothing, and it was you who made, or your department which made all the decisions, or how? What role did the EMSD play? 79, 50 plus, so on and so forth. How were the units purchased? Or you just took orders and did not think twice? Well, it's a trading fund, is it? Can you explain this role? There are two parts. The EMSD seconded an E&M engineer to our headquarters to give his professional advice to us. Having collected users' comments, a briefing was conducted to departmental colleagues to confirm their requests, as I mentioned, and in that briefing a review was also conducted to gauge whether certain items could be consolidated. You had a special team. You had a special team or task force in your department, right? Please remember, your evidence is in our mind. Don't omit the task force all of a sudden. Can you tell us the answer very clearly? The C&M engineer seconded to CAD was a member of the task force, so he could help us coordinate internally. Having coordinated internally, he would write back to the EMSD on users' requirements. So two parties were involved. Well, if I understand correctly, that means the whole decision was unanimously made by the task force, right? So Mr. Wu just now explained the workflow, and that individual units or divisions or departments would be consulted. Did you ask how many units the canteen required or the recreational room required? And from what you said just now, adjustments would be made on the user's needs and actual situation. So You consulted them, they put forward a figure, and did your task force make any adjustments? That is reducing the number of LCD video display units they wanted. Otherwise, if there was no reduction at all, it seems the task force was meaningless. Could you answer his question? In my recollection, according to the papers, a review was conducted. In the review, some proposed units were scrapped. Some remained the same. At some locations, and at some locations there were additional units. Who is the official in charge for the task force? We have Mr. Leung here as the person in charge here. Then was it you who was the responsible person for the task force in 2008? Between 2006 to 2008, an assistant director general who is now retired was responsible for it. Starting from September 2008 until the post was no longer available, another assistant director general of CAD was responsible for that. Perhaps I'll just ask a short question on the $5 million video wall. Originally, it was supposed to be placed on the first floor of the office and training block, and ultimately it was not approved. I saw that it was placed in the lobby, not in any room. Now, about the $5.03 million video wall, what was its use? What is its use? From the picture, I have the impression that when we visit some major corporations or enterprises, sometimes they would have a video wall in the lobby showing a welcome message to us. So I want to know the purpose of such a large video wall costing so much, $5.03 million in the office and training block. How often is it used for training? How often is it used for displaying the welcome message? And how often is it used for watching soccer matches? Unfortunately, we don't have any statistics in this regard, but I can tell members that the video wall doesn't serve a simple function. The video wall can be divided into different frames for showing different things. It is also connected to our ATC system and our radar system, so that real-time displays can be shown. For example, the aircrafts flying over Hong Kong, which aircrafts, etc. During group tours and other visits, we could explain to visitors a lot of things because we could retrieve data from our archive. For example, the air traffic growth, other information in our database, pictures, video clips. We can retrieve them. In the auditorium, during meetings, the meeting can also be televised and broadcast outside, and under special circumstances, during special events, CAD colleagues passing by the video wall would know what is happening outside, because For air traffic management, images and videos captured by our camera system will be displayed there. All the weather information, including the observatory's radar information, will also be shown there. Now, about the functions mentioned by the DG, you did not need to use such a costly video wall, $5.03 million. In fact, it could be shown by just an unused LCD video display unit, which was not reported. I mean, the procurement of which was not reported. If you want a briefing session outside about your training block, it could be done simply with an ordinary LCD video display unit. I won't pursue the question. I just believe that there is a wastage of resources here. So, Kenneth, would you like to sum up this part? I'd like to follow up on LCD video display units. Now, as I understand, there is only one type of LCD units, not so many. I think many colleagues would pursue the line of 90 plus LCD units, but even with the approved 50 plus units, I still think it's a waste. Now, going back to table 5 for the 50 approved units, the purpose is for the integrated information display system. And they would be placed outside canteens, exam rooms, training rooms, etc. For disseminating internally departmental announcements, news to staff, and serve as a web-based room booking system, and it's only for the use by staff. Chairman, you may know that in electrical complex we also have similar display units, and they're basically located in lift lobbies. And the FSTB questioned in January 2010 whether it was whether it was cost effective for meeting details to be displayed outside each conference or meeting room, be it 22 or 26 inches. No one would question you if you put one of these units in lift lobbies instead. However, you explained that since your office layout was longitudinal in shape, it would be difficult for visitors to walk back a long distance to view information in lift lobby. And let me go back to the introduction. On page 6, I saw that the longitudinal block was in fact the C block, office and training block, with a distance of 100 meters. I think anyone from ASD could answer me about the lift lobby in block C, the office and training block. Where is the lift lobby located? Is it at one of the ends or in the center? Thank you, Chairman. The lift lobby is located in the middle, so that means it's just a walking distance of 50 meters at most if you want to check some information. So if you say that it's inconvenient for visitors to walk such a long distance to view information, it's unreasonable. It's just 50 meters, and it's for staff members. Let's say you can walk 100 meters per minute. I mean, even in our complex, we only have such information display units in lift lobbies. So I think it's totally irresponsible for CAD to respond to FSTB this way. You could have asked for a video display unit to be set up once every 10 steps. Well, but I find FSTB at fault as well, because they should have questioned why. If units are installed in lift lobbies only. I don't know the exact number, but at least you will require less than 50. DG. In hindsight, I agree with Dr. Leung. In fact, we're discussing with the FSTB. We're reviewing the situation and see where LCD units can be reduced, and we'll also consult the GPA and seek their help in utilizing the units for other purposes. Chairman, a review at this stage for possible reduction. Well, you need to take down the units and you need to fill the holes. You need to spend tens of thousands of dollars. So admit the mistake, and we won't be asking you to remove them, because the remedial costs could be as much as several $1,000s per unit. We just want you to be more cautious when it comes to accounts. Now, 50 units. Just now, you agreed that some units could be reduced because it's not really an emergency. We're not talking about air traffic accidents, and that you need to go out and rescue people at once. Now, another question, I'd like the DG or the CAD to explain to me the following. Why is it that soon after the LCD units were purchased, 7 were replaced? Yes, who would like to take the question? I will defer to Mr. Wu. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member. I'm not in the task force. I wasn't in the task force. In our initial application to the FSTB about the multimedia presentation system, we also put in video conferencing system. So, in some of the Assistant Director General's rooms, such installation was necessary. So, the first batch of LCD units procured did not have this function. So 7 new units were purchased to replace the original ones so that they can serve as LCD video display units as well as units for video conferencing, so that 2 functions could be served by 1 unit. I am still puzzled. I'm confused. How large is the room of your Assistant Director General's office per person? GPA, how many square feet? I'll just ask your question first. On the desk of your DG or ADG, there is already an LCD computer display, and we could use video cameras for video conferencing, just $3,000 or $4,000 per LCD unit. Of high resolution, you could read emails, check information as a computer monitor. So, isn't it enough? My first question is, how large is the room of the ADG or DG? how many units, how many video display units are there on the desk of the ADGs? There is a computer monitor connected to the server. There is also in my room, which is one of the 7 units mentioned. There aren't any other units.
What about the new 7 units, the replacement units? How big are they? Kenneth? I believe we've already got sufficient information for writing our report. Well, I hope they can give us supplementary information on these additional details. Now, the 7 new units are for conference meetings, video conferences. But I think the 7 persons should just go to the room to attend the meeting. Are you telling us that the 7 persons should stay in their own rooms and just watch these 7 LCD units? I think we always encourage direct interpersonal contact. I think just 1 or 2 such units in a conference room should suffice. Not just government departments, even big companies operate that way. Well, for video conferences, such facilities are really excessive. Well, please read paragraph 4.12. 2 of the 7 are 52-inch and 5 46-inch. I hope that your eyesight won't be damaged. On my desk, my computer display units are only 28 inches or just a little bit more than 30 inches. I think these LCD video display units are just too big. I believe you should have adopted measures to save money without hampering operational efficiency. Mr. Chairman, I don't think I need to pursue these questions anymore. Do you have any more questions on Chapter 3? Otherwise, we can take a break. Mr. Chairman, for Chapter 3, several scenarios are depicted. The restrooms, the recreational facilities, the toilets, and so forth. In fact, the cause of all these problems was the same. Our colleagues have already asked questions about them. Now, the ASD is the gatekeeper. The CAD is the user. Both of them should be held responsible on this matter, although they put forth different reasons that had caused the uselessness of these facilities and equipment. Still, the scenarios were the same. I have no further follow-up questions. And then for Part 4, I asked for supplementary papers and information. I hope to obtain them, for example, in terms of the size of the DG's office. So, Mr. Chairman, I think we can have a brief summary or take a break. Well, I think so much for this chapter. If we need to follow up on anything, we can do that in writing. So let's take a break of 5 minutes. Please come back at 4:10 and we'll proceed to Chapter 4.